Katie Hopkins here with the more truthful take of the news you need coming out of batshit bonkers Britain. First up, the government are getting rid of cancer targets in England. This usually happens because they're not being met, and that's true in this case. About 80% of targets are not being hit. So what better way of dealing with that than scrapping the targets? It's a bit like the Welsh with their education programme. When they didn't hit those education targets, they just scrapped the targets as opposed to addressing the issue with their kids. But these will be replaced by something called the faster diagnosis standard. There's another clue there. If anything ever is called faster or better or brighter, you know that it's going to be the opposite of that. And so this will be the case here. The government will be hoping that perhaps you will die more quickly, certainly more cheaply, and I guess they would very much like it if you could die from cancer more quietly as well. Second up, Bradley Cooper, Leonard Bernstein. Bradley Cooper is playing Leonard Bernstein in a movie called Maestro, and his family absolutely love how Bradley Cooper is doing this, how he's made it, how sensitively he's portraying the role. But as part of that, he has a big nose. Leonard Bernstein had a big nose, so Bradley Cooper has a big nose to play a guy who has a big nose. I have a big nose, so if ever one day someone decides to make a movie about my life and the fantastic ambassador that I was for the truth despite being got at by everybody on the left, then I hope to God they make my nose as big as they want to, but more importantly I hope they make my tits look massive. Anyway, the anti-Semitism bunch are out in force. They say that Bradley Cooper wearing a big nose to play a Jewish guy who had a big nose is anti-Semitic. Somehow with this whole anti-Semitic lobby, it works that if you're not Jewish, you're an anti-Semite, which I think is kind of racist in and of itself, but I'm not sure. And a level deeper than that, of course, you're not allowed to do cartoons or any kind of, interpretation of a Jewish person as having a big nose because that would be anti-Semitic. You're not allowed to do any portrayal as a Muslim individual with any of the Muslim tropes or what actually they might look like. But you are allowed to do this to Indian women, particularly in politics, because, yes, Jewish people have the financial power and control the media. Muslim people have the political power of the future, and Indian people, so Hindus and Sikhs, really don't matter, so they're fair game. And at the British Museum, the museum has had to fire one of its staff members for stealing. So there's been jewellery that's been taken, precious stones, all sorts of things from the collection. And the British Museum have got rid of that individual. There's this kind of irony, I guess it is, because people would argue that the British Museum has stolen everything that it's got all along, like artefacts from the first peoples in Australia or from Africa or Nigeria, the bronzes from Nigeria, right? That's all stolen stuff, looted, if you will, and they're not going to give that back anytime soon. And so the idea that the British Museum has got rid of someone for stealing when what the British Museum has done all along is stealing, I mean, I don't know and I don't really care. What I love is the idea that someone, let's call her Belinda, from the British Museum, has been working there, stealing bits of jewellery, going out at night to like spoons, and her mates are like, "Oh, Belinda, I love your necklace, love your earrings. Is it vintage?" She goes, "Yeah, it's vintage. Yeah, it's Egyptian, actually." And she means it. Anyway, that's what you need to know today out of batshit bonkers Britain. From me, Katie Hopkins. Do join me anytime you fancy. www.katiesarms.com